Hello, cherry pies. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. Today, I want to talk about a specific mistake that we very often make when we're doing shadow work. I have been a shadow worker myself for many years now, and I've been putting resources and content and workshops and all kinds of things out into the world to help people to understand how to do shadow work, how to utilize spiritual tools specifically, especially witchy and mystical tools, to carry out shadow work, to look at those things that are right on the edge of consciousness that we have been unwilling or unable to see, and we want to drag them into the light. We want to understand them. We want to integrate them for the interest of wholeness and healing. I've made an entire playlist of videos on shadow work. I will leave that for you down below. But today I want to talk about one of the biggest mistakes that it's possible to make on the shadow work journey. It is a wrong decision that I have made quite a few times in my journey as a shadow worker.
Oh, sod a dog. I've made the wrong decision, haven't I?
And so I'm speaking from bittersweet experience, because what I struggled with in the early days of understanding and utilizing the concept of shadow work, I now very much benefit from, and I understand, and I don't make that mistake anymore. So let me take you with me on a little bit of a journey, okay? Walk with me, darlings, and I'm going to explain to you what is one of the biggest mistakes I see when I'm talking to people who are engaging with shadow work and they're asking me, why isn't this going well? I keep hitting the same thing. I keep bumping up against the same thing, and I really want to make a breakthrough, and I can't seem to get to that breakthrough. Things are stalling. My progress is plateauing constantly, and I'm really wanting to break through. This is what might be happening. Okay, so huddle up and grab a pen and paper, because I'm going to get really real with you here for a second. There are so many excellent books and resources out there from various different teachers and mentors and psychologists and mystics and counselors, like so many excellent things out there to teach you how to do solo shadow work, which I do believe is entirely possible. And it's something that people are drawn to do naturally, right? Naturally, many of us are just shadow workers by nature. We know that there is something, some Leviathan lurking down there beneath that is asking for our attention and that we keep turning away from or ignoring, and we seek out resources to help us to deal with it, to help us to unpack it and to bring it into the light. Okay, so I'm not sitting here by any means and being like, I'm the only one with the resources to help you. Nothing like that. There's loads of excellent shit out there, but there is something that makes those particular resources excellent in my view. And many other resources do not have this specific thing. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. Okay. So a lot of the material out there that you can find, contemporary material to help you to integrate shadow work into your process, will tell you that shadow work is about confronting what it is that you have been struggling with, that you've been afraid of, that you've been unable to voice in some way, and that you've been ignoring. And then you process it emotionally through journaling, through doing therapeutic work, through ritual, through crying, through screaming into the void, through dancing it out of you, all of these kinds of different things, right? You feel it, you acknowledge that it's there, you really confront it, but you also interface with it, and you give it the space and time and attention to actually come out of you, so that you can look at it and you can plainly say, that's how I feel, that's what happened, that's the flaw that I'm working with, that's what keeps messing everything up. And that work is incredible, and that work is very often the work of catharsis. You know, it's really puking. That's what it is. And the puking is an incredible aspect of the work of looking at and dealing with a shard of shadow. However, the catharsis, the puking, is not the integration. It's not the transformation phase. It leads to it, but it's not the same as it. Crying about something that you've been holding in your shadow until your eyes are red and puffy is incredible work to do. It's not, however, necessarily going to lead to a change in behavior, a radical shift, a breakthrough in your life. Journaling about a piece of shadow content until your hand cramps up is incredible as an exercise. I really think it can be so valuable, and you guys know, many of you, that I do posit the value of journaling. I think it's really a great part of the work. However, it's not necessarily, again, going to lead to the behavior change you're looking for, the dropping of the bad habit, the sort of re-establishment of a different and healthier pattern. Okay, talking about it with somebody, getting really confessional with it, talking about every single time this shadow has tripped you up in the past. fucking incredible work. Not taking anything away from you if you're doing that. But again, if you're bumping up against the same thing month after month, year after year, it might be because you are missing the vital difference between the puking and the sacred radical action that leads to the transformation. It leads to a different behavior. It leads to you dropping the previous behavior or mindset. The biggest shadow work mistake, and I think one of the absolutely most common shadow work mistakes, is believing that the emotional release, the catharsis, the admittance of the pain is the same as the result. It is the end of the work. That is the mistake. And it is the mistake that I have made too. Venting and admitting and releasing and expressing is going to clear the path. But the action that you take to bring in the transformation is what is going to help you walk the path and reach the end of the path and walk into the incredible mansion of wellness and glory that's at the end of the path, darling.
Somebody clean some of this shit up before you leave, though.
If you are doing shadow work right now, don't get caught in that emotional feedback loop. Don't convince yourself that because you're experiencing such intensity of emotion as you are journaling about it and talking about it and sitting with it, you know, and admitting to it, then that must mean that you are surely healing. That is the same as healing it, you know, like integrating it. Not so. You could end up journaling about something for 10 years, admitting every single time it's hurt you or it's hurt someone else or it's been a problem for you. And you could still end up finding that there's another 10 years of making the same mistake, doing the same thing, feeling the same thing, getting caught in the same bloody trap. So how do you move on from feeling it really deeply, owning it really honestly, to integrating it, really knowing that there is a different way of doing things and being able to implement that change? I have a few tips for you. Is anybody surprised? Probably not. So come with me and let me explain. Okay, first of all, you're going to get uncomfortably specific. Okay, we need some radical honesty. So the journaling that you're doing and the talking and the processing and everything, it's not wrong. It's a very important part of the work, I think, for a great many people. And I would never say that we should skip it, but we should use it as an opportunity to get very, very specific about what it is that is happening with that piece of shadow, and not only how it feels, but specifically how it really, really feels. Okay. So instead of saying, I'm angry about the way things are in my family, you can say, I'm angry because for years I have been fulfilling a role and I've been living up to an expectation that is not really me and makes me feel like I'm putting my life on hold to make my family happy. And as well as that, go into specific examples of times where you feel this has been happening and bring it back to yourself every time. Okay, so we can get stuck on looking at somebody else's role in feeding this shadow and bringing this shadow to fruition. I always say, bring shadow work back to self as quickly as possible. When I was shadow working a lot of my family shit, it was very, very easy to get stuck, okay, in what other people had done or not done, what they had said that had screwed me up, what they had never said that I had been yearning for. And that is a valid part of the work, but I got stuck there a few times and I definitely didn't bring it back to self. Bringing it back to self would look like still examining and, you know, saying those things or writing those things, but also saying, this is what it's made me do. This is what I have done in response to it. This is how I've used it as an excuse to stay stuck. This is how I have been consistently too afraid to move past that role, to move through that expectation and be authentic to myself, right? So it's being radically specific, radically honest. It's looking for examples, and it's also making sure that you don't get stuck on focusing on other people's shadow work that they haven't been doing and how that's affected you, but also moving through into how you've been responding to it in a way that is making you unhappy or is scaring you or that you really want to change. I think shadow work demands a very uncomfortable type of specificity sometimes, right? Where we really get very, very clear about what is happening. If you know that you are venting a lot and you're processing a lot, or you're writing down a lot of notes, or stuff is coming up for you in your therapeutic work or when you're talking to a partner or friend, but it feels like you're saying the same things, you're thinking the same things, you're getting stuck in the same position, I would recommend going deeper, asking, when does it tend to happen? What are the triggers for it? How does it make me feel when it happens? What are the excuses that I make when it happens? What is the thing I feel at liberty to do when it happens, which is actually dysfunctional for me and unhealthy for me, and I don't want to do that anymore. Within this radical honesty, specifics type of phase, make sure that you're looking at the patterns, not just the emotions. So it's not just how the emotions make you feel when they come up and they're so icky and it's so gross and horrible, but it's also, how do these emotions keep coming up? What actually is the origin for this emotion when it arises? And what choices do you keep making as a result? What patterns do you keep recreating as a result? What role are you playing? Have a look at archetypes. Are you being the martyr in the situation time after time, the victim time after time, the villain, the damsel, whatever it is that you're locked into that role and you can't move past it? Have a look at that as well. How is that a pattern that keeps repeating itself? Ask yourself, where does this pattern live inside my story? What is the loop that keeps occurring? What is the archetype that I keep leaning back on, that I'm not happy with, that is in shadow every single time this situation comes up? What kinds of environments lead to this shadow arising? And what is the behavior that I default to when this shadow arises time after time after time? So you're not just looking at how it makes you feel to be able to see the shadow playing out. You're looking at the patterns that make that feeling arise. You're looking at the triggers and the environments and the specific dynamics that make that shadow stubborn as hell, that make it keep repeating and repeating and repeating, much to your frustration. Many times I've found that looking at my archetypal nature in shadow, right, that comes up every time I'm presented with a specific dynamic or environment has been really important. So where am I being the tyrant? Where am I being the ghost? Where am I being the fixer, the savior? And what are the specifics of those patterns, And again, bringing it back to me, where am I using it as an excuse? Where am I using it to paint a certain picture of myself in my head? Whereabouts am I using it to stay safe? Whereabouts have I been ignoring it to stay sane? And it's not about attacking myself. It's never about attacking yourself. It's just about being very real about what you can change, as opposed to sitting around wringing your hands about what other people need to change. Other people may never change. So bring it back to you. That is just such an important piece of this. So if you are shadow working something right now, ask yourself, are you being specific enough? Are you bringing it back to yourself enough of the time? Are you noticing the patterns that keep recurring and the triggers, environments, etc., topics of conversation, whatever it is that lead to those patterns recurring? If you've not been doing that and you've been stuck in a feedback loop of how you feel and why it's unfair, how you feel and why you're ashamed of it, go into that deeper work of exploration, get specific, bring clarity to it, bring radical honesty to it. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at the underlying beliefs that come along with these shadow behaviors or these shadow emotions, right, that are really difficult for you, that you've been pushing to the side and trying to ignore, but now you're really focusing on them. So the belief is something like, I'm not loved, I'm not safe, people are going to leave me if they find out who I really am, I need to perform in this role to be loved, right? So you're really, really reaching for, what are the beliefs behind the feelings and the behaviors? What kinds of beliefs do the patterns bring up in me that I've been allowing to ride out for far too long without questioning and without doing anything to change them? When you have found the belief that you've been harboring, then you ask yourself, what is this belief protecting? What is this belief helping me to ignore? What do I feel like this belief is saving me from, even though time after time I'm unhappy with the results of this belief that I have? I think every shard of shadow comes with at least one or two, if not a gaggle, a handful of beliefs that are informing the pattern, reinforcing the pattern, making you feel like you can't change the pattern, right? And I think that we cannot change what we don't name. And so this is really the belief naming segment of the program. And along with that, this is really important, guys. Along with that, ask yourself, when did this belief originate? right? When did it start to form? Because you might be working with a part of your wounded child, you might be working with a part of your wounded adolescent, you might be working with a specific piece of you that formed at a very specific time, either when you were really young because of the dynamics that were occurring, or when a really specific difficult situation occurred in your life. And you found that, that you were a specific aspect of yourself, a phase of yourself, if you will, at that time. I have spoken about parts work in previous videos. I massively recommend reading into internal family systems, and I massively recommend a couple of videos that I have made about doing parts work. I will leave them down below. Is there two, or is there one that I specifically want to mention? There's one definitely that I will leave down below, which gives you a little bit of a guided tour of some of my key parts that I work with in my journaling, ritual, and therapy. And it will give you kind of an understanding of what incredible positivity can come from working with yourself as parts. Think of yourself as different parts at a board meeting. I would never recommend, to be honest with you, doing shadow work whilst thinking of yourself as just like one whole person and trying to figure out what you believe or trying to figure out where you are going wrong. For me, it's always been better to like shatter the glass of myself and be like, okay, I have several wounded children. One of them's trying to please my narcissistic parent. The other one's trying to protect my traumatized parent. This one's trying to do this. And then my inner teenager, she's mostly angry, fair enough, but there's other aspects to her as well. She's where my fantasy dream world, kind of like running away from society, maverick nonconformists, like queer, angry, protesting bitch. That's where she started. And then onward from there. I have various different parts of me that fulfill different roles, that have different beliefs, they have shadow aspects, and they have integrated healthy aspects. I find it really, really, really useful, guys, when I'm doing shadow work around something, to look at it like that. Where is this coming from? Is this coming from my healer in shadow, which tends to be a fixer and a savior? I know that's not healthy. Let me look at that. Is this coming from my wounded inner child? Do I need to pay some attention there? So if you want to do anything around parts work and you know that that helps you, really bring that into exploring the beliefs. Where did they originate? Where did they originally come in and start causing trouble? Because they're really, really ingrained by the time you get to looking at the shadow, but they were once brand new. They once were forged inside you. They once scribbled their signature across your soul. They really did the work to affect you and change the way that you relate to people or to yourself or the world. So find out, where did they start? Where did they come from in the first place? Another really important perspective to have if you really want to have results with your shadow work is that you are building a relationship with a particular fragment of shadow. You're not trying to purge it. You're not trying to banish it. You're not trying to get it gone and change the locks. You're trying to understand it. You're trying to bring it into comprehension by letting it talk, by letting it explain things to you. I sometimes like to think of my shadows as beings in themselves. Several of the parts that I work with in my therapy and my journaling and ritual are shadow parts. And they are really, really wounded. They are really disaffected. They are really angry. They are very destructive. They do have, though, a motive. It is to keep me safe, or it is to comfort me in my hour of need, but they're doing it in a destructive way. They're doing it in a way that is not conducive to me having a healthy life. I don't want to lock those parts out. I want to ask them questions. I want to build a relationship with them. I want to say, talk to me. What is it that you're really afraid of? What is it that you really need? Because I can't have you acting up like this all the time. I don't see you as a part of me that is in keeping with the rest of me and what I'm trying to build and who I believe I am in my soul. So we need to work together. Talk to me. What is the thing that is freaking you out, that is pissing you off, that is making you act up in this way? I'm here. I'm open. Tell me what you need me to know. And do visualizations around that. Do channeled journaling around that. I love channeling my shadow part. I love that. Couldn't do it all day, every day, and definitely wouldn't recommend delving into it for like hours at a time. But to put an hour aside, for me, honestly, to put an hour aside and be like, okay, I'm going to go to that part that I know always feels this way and acts out of line and does this thing. And I'm going to let her speak. I'm going to give her a page of my journal and I'm going to let her say whatever the fuck she wants to say. And then I'm going to interrogate a little bit. I'm going to gently ask the questions that I need to ask to figure out how we're going to move this forward. It's a negotiation process. It's a process of listening to the confessions of the shadow part of you. And that's part of building that relationship, you know? I think that's far easier than changing the locks. I think that you're not looking over your shoulder all the time when you integrate as opposed to push away, when you try to understand as opposed to banish. I like to ask my shadow part, what do you need? How did you come to be? What is the thing that makes you keep doing the thing that you're doing? If I could change anything to make you come out of this behavior, what would it be? How can I make you feel safe in the architecture of myself? Why don't you feel safe now? What do I keep doing that's making you come out and do these things? Please help me. Help me to understand. Of course, as witches and mystics, we are very often working with gods and guides and beings and forces of nature and astral architecture that we've built over the years, places we go to find the answers and to get support and to get comfort. I don't think we should ever take this stuff out of shadow work. We should do this stuff, you know, to the extent that it makes us have these breakthroughs. My matron goddess Hel has been instrumental in helping me to put some of these pieces together that I did not see before. So if you've got those extra materials, extra toolkits, extra support, go to it, use it. You know, really connect with it to support you and to strengthen you, to fortify you for the shadow work ahead. These steps that I've been talking about so far are really the best way that I can possibly explain how you can get clearer and more action oriented. And now we're going to talk about taking the action that will make catharsis into transformation for you in shadow work. Without this next step, I feel like the rest of it can be painted bread. It ends up being a bit nonsense. It ends up being not useful. It ends up being, like I said at the beginning, an emotional feedback loop that's not leading you anywhere. And you are walking round and around in it, trying to find the door. This is the door. This is the door. Let me explain. Dare to do something differently. Anchor your understanding in behavior. You've got to scare yourself a little bit. It's a little bit of a risk it for a biscuit type of situation. But this has been the biggest difference for me between understanding a piece of shadow and actually changing the negativity and the problematic stuff that comes from that shadow. Is really taking action. It's anchoring my understanding in action. And I decide what that action is going to be. And then that is the sacred experimentation phase. That's where I really let the pedal hit the metal. I think about how I'm going to change the story I tell myself at a specific type of moment where it's a stressor for that shadow. I think about how I'm going to change what I say, how I'm going to change what I don't say. I think about how I'm going to give myself a different kind of permission. I think about something that I'm going to do that feels a little bit like a double dare for me. It's nerve-wracking, right? For example, let's say that you're shadow working your people-pleasing tendencies and they're very stubborn. They're very entrenched in you. Once you have done the work of getting very specific, you're going to know where that people-pleasing tendency originated, what its greatest fears are, why it's doing what the fuck it's doing, right? You're also going to understand, if you've done that work of getting specific, what are the stressors? What are the triggers for that people pleasing? And you're going to understand how it shows up. You've already done that work. That's incredible. You've done that work. You know how it makes you feel. You know where it comes from. So if you're shadow working your people pleasing behavior, you might notice that one thing that you do when you're in people pleasing is that you don't leave when you want to. You stick around. You feel like you've got to be there for everyone, make sure everybody's okay, be the support for somebody, the cheerleader, the sidekick archetype, whatever archetypes come in that make you feel like you can't just end the night when you want to and go home when you want to. So therefore, what would your sacred action be in shadow work? Daring to leave when you want to. If that's really scary for you, if you've never done that before, then your sacred action would be to do an Irish exit, baby. Well, that might be a little bit too far actually for a people pleaser who doesn't just leave when they want. But just like getting up and without any justification or any long-winded explanation or asking anyone if it's okay, you just basically say, okay, guys, I'm off. It's been real. And yeah, I'll message you later or see you whenever. Right, that for a people pleaser might be a really scary thing to do. That's where the rubber is going to meet the road. So that's the decision that you make. That's the sacred action you're going to bring into play. That is where it stops being just writing about it, doing therapy around it, feeling into it, visualizing it, ritualizing it. That's where it becomes real, that you're actually trying something different that scares you and is definitely going to be alchemical. Even if nobody around you even bats an eyelid and they're like, okay, cool, yeah, bye. And that would be delightful for a people pleaser in many ways. But even if nothing happens externally, really, something huge happens to you. You've set yourself free. You've realized, like, damn, I identified a people pleasing behavior that's been stubborn for years and I did something different. If your people pleasing behavior is over giving through bringing just way too many gifts, right? You know that if it's someone's birthday or it's Mother's Day, whatever it is, you could go with a bunch of flowers or some chocolates or getting somebody dinner. But no, for your people pleasing, it ends in you being in debt. It ends in you taking out a credit card. It ends in you having like 12, 15 different presents or whatever. And you think, wow, my people pleasing is actually leading to financial panic, right? Your action, your sacred shadow work action would be, okay, my friend's birthday is coming up in a week. I definitely want to get them 5, 6, 7, 8 different things and go way over the top. And I don't want to stop. I want to buy more and more and more. And you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to get them one present, one card. If you've never had this problem before, you're not going to understand why this would make a people pleaser panic. But if you know that you are a chronic buying of gifts type of people pleaser, this is an incredible sacred action to do, which is deeply transformative. It's more than just writing about why you're resentful that you feel you have to get loads of gifts. When was the first time you felt you had to get loads of gifts? Where does the behavior come from? What is it trying to fix or heal in you that is a mistake? Instead, you're saying, okay, I know it's happening. I know why it's happening. I know where it started. I know why I do it. Now it's time to not do it and see what happens. And it should make your palms sweat a little bit in some cases. Some of the sacred actions that I've taken to make sure that my shadow work is not just catharsis, but is actually transformation, have been actions that I haven't wanted to take for years in some cases. So yeah, my palms were sweaty. Yeah, I absolutely was like, oh my God, I'm like, gonna do something different today. I'm nervous. I'm scared. And that's okay. It's like a beautiful, exhilarating fear because it is the suggestion that there is a gateway through to a different way of being, a different way of living, being free of that toxic belief and going into something that feels more like you. This is where it's going to be really, really good if you've done your parts work beforehand, because you're going to need to comfort and negotiate with the part that is playing up, that is in shadow, you know? So if you're about to take an action to help you to really like integrate the shadow, the part of you that you're working with that really doesn't want you to do that is going to pipe up. That part of you is going to say, no, but we have to do it that way. Otherwise, people won't love us. We have to do it that way. Otherwise, people won't notice us. We have to do it that way. Otherwise, people are going to think we're mean or cruel or whatever, or we're going to hurt people's feelings, right? Then you get to go in and sit with that part of you and say, darling, I know you're afraid, but it's better this way. Trust me. I know that you're scared, but we're going to do this together. But we're not doing things your way today, okay? Because it just always ends up hurting me. And so we're going to do it differently. And I'm going to show you how it can be okay. And not only can we survive after taking this action, but we can thrive as well. You know, so that part of you that really wants to see change in your shadow work is going to talk to the part of you that is like, fuck that, let's just do what we've always done and stay safe.
Sugar fudge piss poo pants bollocks. Yes, blitzkrieg, I'm in the Ardennes.
If you are feeling very brave today, put down in the comments something that you know has been a stubborn shadow for you, a little bit of a shadow work final boss for you. And you know that you've been on a loop and things are not changing, and tell us, what is the sacred action? How are you going to anchor this understanding into a sacred action? Make your vow down below. Tell me what you're going to be doing differently. Something that scares you, something that feels a little bit uncomfortable, something that's out of your comfort zone, but you're going to commit to doing it for the good of your entire beingness. After you have taken your sacred action in your shadow work, record the results, celebrate the results, ritualize the fact that you did that thing, that it was scary, that it was different to what you've normally done, that it might be the very first time you've done something different for yourself in this regard. That deserves ritualization. That deserves acknowledgement. Okay, make a celebration of some kind, do something at your altar, do something to help your gods to acknowledge that change that you made, write a letter of congratulations to yourself and read it aloud in front of the mirror, burn something, you know, like I really love to burn something when I did something differently and I really want to acknowledge. I write it out. I'm like, today, for the first time, I did this, and that demonstrates that I have the power over my life and I have a sense that I deserve something different for myself. This is the very beginning of change, and I'm so proud of myself. Reading that aloud in the mirror and then burning it in my cauldron is absolute poetry to me, guys. I love doing that. It's one of the main reasons I love being a witch, because I get to have those sacred moments of acknowledging. I get to have those moments where I ritualize the shift that I have just brought into being, and I'm proud of myself for that. Speak the new truth out loud, write it, like I said, bury it, burn it, ritualize it, do pop it work, do whatever it is you want to do to acknowledge that, like, the shift has come, something else is possible. I was scared, but still I dared. That's just one of the most sacred parts of witching, I think, in my opinion. Remember, this does not mean that we have banished the shadow, okay? That's not how we think of it in shadow work. We think of it as a reclamation of something that was once long ago lost to us. It is a coming home. It is giving that part, that wounded shadow part, some nutrition, some recognition, something to do to show it that a different way is possible. I never ever imagine that my shadow work is about locking those parts out, dismissing them, shunning them, turning them away. It's not that. It's the total opposite of that. It's me calling those shadow parts home, holding them, rocking them, you know, like really being there for them and saying, it's okay. I know why you're crying. I know why you're screaming inside. I know why you're destroying my internal environment. I know why you're ripping stuff up. But baby, we're going to get through this together. So I'm reparenting. I'm mothering those wounded bits of me. I'm not sending them away and changing the locks. I'm letting them know this is your home too. Don't destroy your home. Tell me what's up and let's do something about it. For a child-free woman, this is as much mothering as I'm going to do. I do a lot of mothering for a child-free person, okay? The mother archetype is strong with me, I feel. But this is one of the key ways that I do it. And it's amazing to feel how incredibly alchemizing it is in my reality. And is there more work to do? Yeah, of course. I'm shadow working some stuff right now that I've been shadow working for about a year. As you live, different shadows become integrated and healed and like understood. And then other shadows start to flinch and go, oh, that's new. Oh, okay, that must be because this happened or that happened or whatever. As life goes on, new shadow material gets added, all right? New editions keep being published. It's about knowing that whenever you do detect something that you need to look at and it's time to do some shadow work, then willingness, clarification, repetition, and the will to actually act on what you've understood in your shadow means everything. It is the difference between that feedback loop of crying, journaling, talking, and not getting anything done, and actually having something to celebrate at your altar and say, whoa, fuck me, I did something. And it's led to so many other doorways opening up. I feel that the avenues are open. My life is expanding. My sense of what I'm capable of is now expanding. Catharsis is puking. We need to puke sometimes. It's beautiful to be able to see it all out there and be like, oh, do you know what? That was in me for so long. And I wasn't claiming it. I wasn't naming it. And I wasn't looking at the truth of it. But puking is not the same as healing, all right? There has to be nourishment afterwards. We have to refuel afterwards. We have to say, okay, now for something different. What am I going to do from now to make sure that that puking has been worthwhile? And that's where we give ourselves the true medicine and the true rehabilitation. And I feel that comes from whatever sacred actions we're going to take that are going to freak us out in the most sacred way that you can imagine. If you're always crying about it and you're always writing about it and nothing ever seems to be changing or evolving, then you are in that emotional feedback loop, and it's okay, but it just means that your method needs to evolve in some sense. So get at me down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know what is coming up for you. Is there some sacred action that you need to take, that you've been meaning to take, that you make a decision right now that you are going to take a stab at in some way? Let me know. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you think of shadow work and the whole journey of doing it, and and like whether or not you feel you're a little bit past you doing some as well. Like I said, check out my shadow work playlist. If you want to work with me, there are a few different options that could be really good for you. One of them is my spiritual counseling session. You can get a single session or a package of 3 or 6, and we can go into what is going on for you, my darling, in your journey of feeling healthier and more whole, and just like feeling that the future is gorgeous and full of possibility. We can also do a shadow work reading. This is a 10-card reading that gives kind of like an examination of the shadow landscape and tells you where there might be more work to do. And you also might want to check out my Illuminate shadow work sessions. That is really beautiful, intense one-to-one work with me about a specific shard of shadow or a bunch of them that you really want to put your attention on and bring it to the light. It involves a 90-minute shadow work reading, and there's like lots of other stuff that comes as part of the Illuminate package. I only take on 2 Illuminate clients at a time. So if you click on that link and you find that it's not there, I'm fully booked with Illuminate, but please check back if you want to do that work with me. Darlings, over on Patreon, I am having a Cauldron award ceremony soon, Cauldron Conjuring award ceremony on Patreon. We love to do a bit of Cauldron conjuring over there. My Pop-Tarts tier are all about it. So make sure you become a Pop-Tart down below using the Patreon link as well if you want to be there for the fire and all the alchemy that can come from that. And just check out Patreon in general, darlings. There's loads to see there. Much love until next time, and blessed be as always. Keep doing it, shadow workers. Mwah! I believe in you.